And I was in Chapter 13 bankruptcy when I decided to open my company. So I literally had no safety net. I mean, it was like I either made it happen or I don't know. We were actually set to close April 1 of 2020. We kind of both looked at each other like, oh my gosh, am I going to be buying this business and it's not going to make any money?
It's so important to hear the no and see the no, because that means there's room for a better yes.
Yes, I love that. While boomers retire, you acquire. That's what I teach people now. And the other thing that I really worked hard on was like, I would ask questions. I call it like, ask a question, sit back and shut up. And really listen to like what people are saying.
Hello, I am Mindy Seeger, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at First Rate Field Services here on the SFR SheSuite. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tanya Odell. I'm the co-host here with my pal Mindy Seeger for the SFR SheSuite, as well as the RVP for ePremium Renters Insurance. Welcome to this episode of the SheSuite. Mindy and I are excited to welcome our friend Stacey Salyer with us today, aka the Slayer. Her experience, reputation in SFR speaks for itself. She has owned her own business, SFR business. She has sold her business. She has worked for that company. She has started new businesses and everything in between, as well as she's gone viral, you guys, on social media. So let's give the Slayer a round of applause and welcome her to the SheSuite. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Love that. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
We are so happy that you're here to join us. We've been so excited to have you on board because we know that you have a dynamic personal story. And also, one of my favorite things is you are the diva of acquisitions. Like, you've got a game plan, you have a playbook, and you help companies with acquisition. So I'm definitely interested in that. But wanted to start out with a little bit about your background and how you got here. Tell us all about you.
Yeah, well, so thank you again, that introduction. So again, Stacey Salyer, or the Slayer, that's what all my friends call me. And I always tell people once they've heard me speak, you're my friend now. So when you see me in a hallway or at a conference, you can call me the Slayer. So kind of rewinding, going back into history, I started in property management in 2004. Way back in the day. At the time I had an 8-month-old and just move forward. So started as a portfolio property manager, fast forward, got my designated broker's license, opened a property management company for a local home builder in 2010 and built that from the ground up. And that was my first experience building a business from the ground up. And then in 2016, at that point, I was now a single mom of 3 kids, very busy, grade school, middle school. And I really had a vision for what I wanted a property management company to look like. I was just captivated by all the prop tech that was coming on, and I just knew that I could create something beautiful for our community, for our clients and residents. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go out on my own. It was perfect timing for the home builder client. He really wanted to kind of downsize and retire. And so at that point, then Leading Edge Property Management and Real Estate was born. I was like my 4th child. And basically just started that from the ground up. Hustled. I started from my living room. That's kind of like what my story. I was very adamant about not having an office. I really wanted to be different. And I knew that I could create something that would fit my lifestyle because, as I said, I was a single mom of 3. And, my eldest was playing travel baseball. And if any my parents out there listening, right? Like, oh yeah, travel baseball is legit, or any really travel. So yeah,
We're on the road. It gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
Right, I do miss those days. I loved watching him play, and I loved, my other 2 kids got a lot of opportunity as well, but, so yeah, my first employee was a remote team member, VA out of Mexico. I utilized all the prop tech to basically streamline and help me grow, so that I could just live the lifestyle I wanted. And, kind of fast forward, I had built up a pretty good business, about 200 doors. I had, kind of a small team and, had really worked hard to put processes and systems into like a good, you know, system. We used Monday.com at the time. And I had an opportunity to speak with a local attorney. And I was like, hey, I'm looking to grow. And he's like, oh, and at that time I was growing door by door, like we normally do in property management.
That's what I was gonna ask. So how did you get from 0 to 200? Was it just organic, 1, 2 at a time? Okay.
Yeah, I focused really hard on
That's hard.
yeah, yeah. So I focused hard on my Google reviews. I, really worked hard to build a reputation in my community, and I was able to get up into like the top 3 of Google pretty quick just by the Google reviews and just, kind of working all that on the back end. But I was kind of on that hamster wheel of growth, is what I call it. And I had this conversation, and he said, "Hey, if would you ever consider buying a company?" And I, of course, said yes, even though number 1, I didn't know how to do that. And number 2, I really didn't have any money. But, I was like, well, whatever, it'll all work out. That's usually how I roll in life. And he said, okay, well, I'll set up a meeting. And so late 2019, I had this conversation with a local business owner, a boomer. I affectionately call people boomers. Like, while boomers retire, you acquire. That's what I teach people now. And had a conversation, and we were like, okay, we can put this deal together. So that was over 350 doors, which was a huge undertaking and required a lot of strategy. So kind of fast forward, we all know what happened in 2020, right? So we were actually set to close April 1 of 2020. And I'm in Washington State, and our state was actually one of the very first to shut down. And we kind of both looked at each other like, oh my gosh, like, should we? Like, what if, yeah, like, am I going to be buying this business and it's not going to make any money? Like, this is not going to work. So we both agreed on a pause. We set a new date for June 1st, 2020. And, I was like, okay, like, people are still paying rent. Like, we were still making money. Cause that's the cool thing about buying another business is that, yes, it does cost money, but you're also buying cash. So,
Right.
if you do it right, the payment on it isn't going to be more, it's not going to be more than like what you're making. It should work out pretty well. And so, yeah, we closed June 1st, 2020, right in the peak, the start of COVID. And I went from, a little like around 200 doors to well over 500 overnight. I had strategized, thankfully, about what that would look like. So I had pre-hired some people, again, mostly remote. I'm still running heavily remote and prop tech, and took a boomer business that was like literally opposite of what I was doing and started incorporating into my business. And that was just a moment in my life where I realized that it changed the trajectory of my life, really, right? It changed the trajectory of my personal life, of my business, people that I employed, even my community. And it was just kind of that aha moment of, oh my gosh, like, you don't have to be on the hamster wheel of growth. Like, there's easier ways. Although I would say, preface, it's not necessarily easy, but it is a, easier way in the fact of, just kind of putting it in there and being strategic about what you're doing. So that really, like I said, changed my life. I did some just strategic moves with that portfolio over the next year. I actually had taken some that didn't fit my portfolio and sold to another brokerage in my area. And that's one piece of advice I love to give to people is, instead of firing clients, like, why not put together like a small book and maybe sell it to somebody else who's willing to take on those clients?
But guys, that's a nugget for those of you that are watching or have some acquisition experience. That is a huge nugget. Please do not miss that, what she just said.
Yes. So, yes, to repeat, instead of firing clients, put together, even if it's 10 or 20 or whatever, it doesn't have to be huge. Package that together and see who might in your area want to pick that up and purchase it. Because,
Your
probably
met is their asset. You never know.
Yep. Yeah. And, some people have different thresholds for what they want to manage. Some people some people love to manage C class, some people don't. And, or whatever it is. Yeah. So that is a piece of advice that I love to give to people, like before you just.
There's somebody for everybody.
That's this yard sale, right? But you're like, oh, I love that.
Right.
What you want to throw away, somebody else will love. That's right.
Yeah.
And they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Your junk might be somebody else's treasure or whatever that saying is. So, yeah. So with all that said and done, then Pure Property Management contacted me and said, "Hey, we would love to buy your business. You run a good one. Da da da. We would love for you to stay on." And I said, "Oh, well, you're calling a little bit early. 5 years too early. I had this 10-year plan from 2016 to 26." And they said, "Well, I'll just take a meeting." And I said, "Okay, I get free dinner. All right." So went and got my free dinner and had a really good conversation. And I was very intrigued with what Pure was doing because at the time, it was a bunch of operators from around the US that I really admired. I thought, wow, these are great people. They have this amazing vision. How cool would that be to be a part of that? And so I actually did pull the trigger and I ended up selling to Pure at the very end of 21. That was the last day of 2021. And, I invested within the company as well. So I took some of my proceeds and invested. That is one thing that I would say, could be life-changing for me as well, right? Because you take all this hard work building this asset, and then when you're strategic about where you place that money, that could grow, potentially far more than what you could get for your business, like just for regular sales. So with that, I decided to stay on with Pure. I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to, again, network around the country and really help grow a national firm. How cool is that, right? Like most people don't get that opportunity to work multi-state. So I ended up becoming the director of acquisitions. And, I'd never really formally done that. Obviously, I had done my own personal and I had sold my business. But I ended up loving it. I ran the entire team from front to mid funnel. That meant the entire United States. And we just basically deployed, and I had hundreds of conversations with property management business owners from all over the United States. I did cold calling. I closed 1,000+ door deals off of cold calls, as well as just like relationships in the area and around the US. And absolutely loved it. It was super fun. And just learned a ton and basically kind of just kept adding to my tool belt. And, again, was also present in the operations piece of it. I was a designated broker for Washington State. So the cool thing about Pure wasn't like, it wasn't traditional corporate. It was like, oh, hey, we're going to band together, build together. And, yes, this is your job, but also like, we know you have skills here. So I got to really participate in a lot of different things. And long story short, had a great, couple of years with Pure and decided then to venture out on my own. And, at almost 50 years old, started another business. So why not? Serial entrepreneur. So that's where, we'll see, there we go. And 50 is fabulous, I will say.
It really is. I love these are the best years.
It's like life-changing. It's like, aha.
Right? I know. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to do and say what I want.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I wish I would have had this knowledge or this mindset in my 20s and 30s and 40s. But I feel so free in my 50s just to be myself. and to celebrate myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I spent my whole life beating myself up, and now I'm just like, you know what? Enough of that. What
Right.
has that done any good? No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate the great things about yourself as a woman, right? And then also let's try some new things that people were afraid to try earlier in our life.
Agreed. Yeah. And really thanking the woman before me of like all the amazing things that she did, right, to get me to where I am. So I think that it's been pretty cool.
That's a nugget too. As you're dropping these little pieces of information, that is huge. Like, as you evolve and grow, I think, for me, I feel like God makes us that way. He makes life that way for a certain reason, whether you believe in God or the universe, whatever it is. But how scary would it be if at 20 or 30 we had the same mindset we do at 50, right? We've been running through walls and all this stuff. So it evolves that way for a reason, right? But we can't forget that girl who was the 20 something and the 30 something and the 40 something that got us here.
Heck yeah, I know. Persevered, resilient, took leaps of faith. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, who quits a 6-figure job to open their own business as a full-time single mom with no safety net? A lot of times, and I have shared this in other stories, but I, had been obviously divorced because I was a single mom. And I was in Chapter 13 bankruptcy when I decided to open my company. So I literally had no safety net. I mean, it was like I either made it happen or I don't know, had to go back and be a property manager somewhere, that's fine too. But it's just kind of insane. Like I look back and I'm like, dang, that girl was ballsy. Like she was like, she's gonna make shit happen. And so I love to honor that person before me as I move forward into my next decade of fun.
Isn't it ironic how in those moments, like those tough moments, and I've been there too, divorce. I've been there, Chapter 13, around the same time. I've had to start over, financially again, even after that, like second time, like I mean, from scratch, right? Like you're 18 years old. In those moments, they can be you feel so ashamed and so isolated. But really, like those are those like golden times that if you don't just if you don't just crawl under a rock, right? If you don't just hide, if you keep going, those are those moments that they really form you into who you are, and they become the things you're the most proud of instead of the most ashamed of,
Yeah.
And they're so relatable because I think we've talked before about how when you start sharing those things, it's amazing how many other women around our age, even just within this industry, but definitely in my personal life too, it's so related. People be like, yes, I've been there. And you're just like, oh man, it's just so reassuring, I don't know. So thank you for sharing that because I know I appreciate the vulnerability there.
Oh yeah, I do too. I mean, it's just wonderful, and you find out what you're made of, and you also figure out during those times, at least I did personally, is okay. I do not know what the future's going to look like. I am scared shitless. I'm scared to death, but I'm just going to put one foot. I'm going to do the next thing. And then after that, I'm going to do the next thing. And I'm just going to have to block out my fears, block out what I'm scared of, and just keep going forward. And then pretty soon you're like, okay, I can do this. I'm doing this. And it is so liberating, especially when you're in such a place of brokenness. And it really is a defining moment, or maybe it's several defining moments in your lifetime, right? But it's a defining moment that you're like, I can do this. And my creator is giving me the strength to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, definitely. I agree with all that. When I had opened Leading Edge, I had hired a business coach. And, about a year into it when I could afford a business coach, barely. I mean, quite honest, I actually really couldn't afford the business coach, but I was like, I knew that I just needed someone to kind of like a little bit of guidance, right? And she had me do this exercise where she's like, just pen to paper for 10 minutes, like just free thinking, like start from like when imagine the future Stacey, like her perfect day, like, and just write it out. Where do you wake up? What does it look like? What's it look like outside? What's it look like around you? Who's with you? Like what, all these things. And, you're writing it out and you're like, okay, this is like super fantasy, in the moment. But it was really cool to be able to do that. And then, we talked about money. And I remember saying, well, I want to make $10,000 a month. And to me, that seemed like really far fetched at the time.
Sure.
But then like when you do it, like you get there and you're like, oh, wow, I just made $10,000 a month. Like, oh, well, okay. So then, you like keep upping your goals. And yeah, I think so, kind of like focusing on that future self of like who you want to be, because that future self is going to get you there. It's like your past self isn't going to get you to where you want to be. So that's something that I love to talk about as well. Like when I work with people, it's very tactical to an extent, but at the same time, it's a lot about like mindset and, transform like your own personal transformation. Because your past self can't really get you to where you want to go. So
Right. Yeah. And I do think you have to be in a place where you're self-aware enough to recognize that, right?
yeah,
And you're brave enough to just act on it. I can remember being in such a scary place where, it's just, when I say day by day, like it's literally day, like I'm going to get through today.
Sometimes 5 minutes by 5 minutes.
You're exactly right. And you're like, okay, I have to buy groceries. Well, you know what? I've got some clothes I can sell. I'm going to go to consignment. I'm going to sell those clothes. Okay. I'm going to come home and I'm going to buy. Okay. That's done. And also I do a lot of like reading and searching, and I've had the opportunity to have some coaches and different things in the last few years. And, just saying like in those moments too, like, I am so grateful. So, because you can't lose sight of those little, like successes in those moments, right? Like, I am so grateful that I was just able to go to the grocery store, like say that out loud. You don't realize how much like that gives back to yourself, how much positivity, and you just feel stronger in that moment. And it can be something that's smaller like that, or even, starting a company, like writing down, saying out loud, I am capable of getting this off the ground. I am capable of making $10,000 a month. I am capable of, and there's power in that. People say it's woo woo. Maybe I'm a little woo woo. I don't know, but
No, you're not.
I believe it. I believe it in depths of my soul. And I've seen it. Other people who believe it, I've seen what they do.
Yeah.
And you have to stop saying it's a little wishy-washy and do it.
Yep. No, for
I
sure.
really, another thing that I still struggle with to this day is allowing others to help me. Like I feel like I can do it all. I don't want to burden other people, but there is a joy that others get from helping if you just allow others to help. And that also enriches your lives. It helps you build friendships and partnerships that maybe you never were open to before because you had this I can do it all attitude. But allowing others in to help is, one, it's very humbling, but it's also very enriching to our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah, one thing that I love to do is out loud every day say, I'm thankful and grateful for whatever. And it doesn't have to be big. Most of the time it's not. It's, I'm thankful and grateful that I have the opportunity to, talk to you today, or, anything, just focusing on kind of that positive. And I'm probably more woo than less. People always say like, "Oh, I'm a little woo woo," and I'm like, why don't we embrace that? Like, obviously it works, right? And again, it doesn't matter, like whether you say, God or universe or source, whatever it is you believe, like that's all that matters. Whatever name you want to assign it, but it's all about just kind of, that mindset I guess, that for me, like, I just really focus on the mindset, and it doesn't mean that, like, every day is perfect or every moment is perfect, but that's the other thing that I love to say to people is that, like, I never have a bad day. I may have a challenging moment within the day, but there's never a bad day. That's what I like to say because there's always something good within each day.
Yeah.
Right. And what is it that uh, I'm learning from this? And what is the universe teaching me? What am I getting to learn from this moment? And you can even laugh about it and be sarcastic about it because you really are learning in the moment. We don't learn when things are easy. We get our most enriching learnings and experiences from strife in our lives. And so it's even though it may be tough at the moment, you're gaining so much that maybe you don't realize at the moment, but maybe looking back, you can see I am gaining so much from this.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've been like in the car or somewhere, and it, we've all had those kind of domino days, right? Like you're walking through the kitchen, you reach for the milk and it falls all over the floor, and then you turn around and you step in the cat food bowl and it goes there. Like just one thing, your boss wants to talk to you, and you jump on a Zoom call, and he's like, "Well, we're going to eliminate your position." Like one thing after another, right? And I can't tell you, like, maybe not that specifically, but there's days where it's been that caliber, right? And I just kind of look around, I'm like, okay, like I'm laughing now, but like, let's stop. It might be, it's funny, like, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to, I try to teach my kids, like, or at least just not even just teach, just share them. Like, your perspective on every situation and how you look at it is really everything,
Mhm.
right? And that's a choice you have.
Mhm.
You can choose to look at it as a challenge, or you can wallow in it. Yeah, we all get mad and we all have like that moment where we're like, why? But the quicker you can change your mindset, the quicker you can get out of that and just move on.
Yep.
And laugh about it or share it. And, it can become a growth opportunity instead of a shameful moment or embarrassing situation or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, one of my new mantras that I recently heard was, whatever is happening isn't happening to me, it's happening for me.
Mm.
And
Oh, I haven't heard that. I love that.
yeah, and I really, really like that. In fact, I follow Jasmine Star, so that's where I've heard it. I'll give her props. And I don't know if she made it up, but wherever, that's where I've heard it. So instead of whatever's happening to me, it's happening for me. And it can be frustrating. I mean, for example, I last week was in Nashville traveling, and I had my whole 2 weeks planned out. It was very like planned out. I was going to be in Nashville. I had all these things planned that did not go. Nothing happened that was supposed to happen in Nashville. But I mean, we had great things happen, just nothing is planned. And then I was going to go to the beach because we have a place in South Carolina. And I was going to spend a couple days there by myself, like kind of decompressing and, in my thoughts. And then I was going to go back to Nashville for a women's retreat. And so I'm in the middle now of this whole thing. And well, you all know the weather, like on the whole East, did not cooperate. It like no, it actually snowed at the beach, and I mean, I kid you not, I tried every which way to get to the beach, and the universe was like, "No, Stacey, you're not going to the beach." So there's a reason why. I don't know what the reason was, but that's just, I mean, maybe one day I'll know. I don't know, but it did not happen, and I tried every which way. I rescheduled flights. I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna fly to Charlotte, then I'm gonna rent a car, and I'm gonna drive because it's like 3 hours." And then I'm texting, "Then I'm gonna walk, then I'm gonna," I'm like, "Then I can maybe take a bus." I don't know. I was like, what? And then finally, the last flight that I'm like, we're literally on the plane, and I kid you not, like, so 7 a.m. we were supposed to take off to go to Charlotte, and we couldn't because the pilot's oxygen mask wasn't working. And so this took like well over an hour to get repaired. Meanwhile, I'm texting my girlfriend who lives in Charlotte. She's like, "Girl, it is like snowing here. Like, not just like a little, like, it is legit snowing." And so time goes on, then they're like, okay, we're gonna take off at 9:30. Then they're like, oh, we got a ground stop. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And so eventually it got canceled. And that just kind of takes me back to like, okay, I'm not meant to be there. Like clearly I just need to go back home to the West Coast. I didn't want to because the time zone thing is like all wonky, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm meant to be here back home for whatever reason that is. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll know. And then I'll just go back to Nashville to women's retreat and life will go on. But it's, I guess it kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, well, it's not happening to me. It's happening for me. Like there is a greater reason of why I wasn't meant to go to the beach and see it snow, even though I really, really wanted to see a sunrise with snow on the beach, but that's okay.
Yeah, no.
Well, I read what you sent out today, an email, and one of and it was talking, I assume, about this story. And one of the things I really appreciate about you saying is the most expensive leadership move isn't making the wrong choice. It's refusing to pivot when the facts change. And sometimes the smartest thing a leader can do is, rather than say, this isn't working, we're going to do something different. And I really think it's so important as a leader, as a person, to pivot because the universe is telling you, hey, it's a no. It's a hard no. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to sulk? Are you going to try to force this? Or are you going to actually pivot and go in the direction you need to go in?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for reading. Yes. And that was exactly about that. And I was like, okay, there's clearly a lesson here. And, I did try and tie it into leadership because when you are leading a team and you're just like hell bent on like, no, this is what we're doing. And all signs are pointing to that not working. It is important as a leader to really step back and look at, well, why am I keeping, like, why,
Right. And I think it's really good for everybody on the team to have that mindset because it's just so important to hear the no and see the no because that means there's room for a better yes.
Yes. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah. You should put that out right now.
Yeah. Scribble that down and send it to us after the show.
Scribble that down.
Yeah. It's true though. I mean, all these little nuggets, I mean, it's invaluable, when you can start to incorporate them in your day-to-day life, right? In your family life, like I know for me, like sometimes with the kids, I think Stacey, your kids and mine are similar in age. I think my youngest is a senior in high school this year too. And it's like how sometimes those moments, if you let them, they can be overwhelming or the competition with everybody in society. Where are you going to college? Where are you going, and I have to keep myself just, and in that zone and in that mental place where I'm able to help him, you know what? Your life is going to be great regardless of that choice, regardless of where he, she, they go, because your success is completely up to you. Like if you transfer into a school, if you start out there, whatever it is, your life is not over because, you're number one, you didn't get in or something like that. So, or dealing with just anything along that realm. But it can be, and obviously in the professional world, like, to your point, it's not happening to me. It's happening for me. There's plenty of us, when I think about this last year, there were some people that I knew well within the SFR space that had been around a while. And, they did have that, like your roles eliminated and all this, and that those things can be embarrassing. They could be shameful. But if you can really look at that, like, why is this happening? Is this a time for me to grow? Because I know I'd mentioned Jen Merritt earlier. She and I had talked a little bit about this. And I know for me personally, there was a time when I took a role and I had been known to be really good at that role. I could even train other people on it. But mentally, I had outgrown that role.
Ah, yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I really wasn't doing my best work in that role because I was wanting to do other things, my mind was in a bigger place and I didn't want to focus on I don't want to say smaller, but the details of this role. Exactly.
Yeah, your
And
portfolio role.
sometimes moving on or being forced to move on is the best thing that can ever happen to you because you have to open your eyes and be ready to do other things. But I want to transition back back into the acquisitions a little bit while we have some time. So I had said I've definitely been on the acquisition side. We were one of the first companies when I worked for Atlantic here in Atlanta to do acquisitions, and it was definitely a learning process. But one of my favorite things I've ever done within my career, very passionate about it. And then at Home River Group, I lost, several acquisitions that were close to the finish line to Pure, right? They had a great, acquisition concept and the way, and they, like you and many others that I respected within the SFR space, that chose that firm. So you doing the acquisitions, like you acquiring companies versus you being acquired, like how was that like to get to be on both sides of that space? Like, you don't have to go too far in it, but I just wonder, like, because I know, PM company acquisitions, if you've been a part of one, is one of the most delicate transitions I've ever, been a part of, right? Because you have to keep your owners happy. If you're a third party management company, you have to keep your residents happy. You don't, there's a lot of balls in the air. But if you're the one selling, like, how was it for you?
Yeah. Uh, I loved it. I loved doing it. I guess I didn't really look at it as like, oh, I'm gonna go out there and just like buy up everybody and like we're gonna destroy your business. And I think that was kind of the big thing, at least with Pure, like we weren't going in and like wiping out teams and making huge changes. Um, and so I really enjoyed it. We had different buy boxes, of course. So in some markets, we were trying to buy, kind of those A+ companies that, we could like use as an anchor. So that's a very different conversation and purchase. And then in some markets, it was more roll up. So we were going more for like kind of those, boomer-ish businesses. I love going after boomer business or like teaching people how to buy boomer business now, but and kind of taking their legacy and putting it into our company and being able to continue their legacy in a way. So I think if you look at it like that, it's like not a negative thing, right? So it's like, how can we take what you've built and, Brit, put it into our thing and make it bigger and better for you and your legacy. And at the end of the day, I mean, you have to do something with your business. Like, number one, you should always be building your business like it's your greatest asset. I think a lot of us, I mean, even myself, like when I started mine, I used to call it my fourth child. I was like, oh, my fourth child. It was like this this other thing for me. And I realized at one point, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not leading edge. Like that is not like, that's not me. Like my identity is not the business. So once I kind of got to that mindset, it really helped me then see like, oh no, I'm building like this thing that's actually like going to make me money one day. And it's not about the money in the moment, it's about the money in the future. But so, I guess just kind of working on like taking those, but then, the boomer businesses, like what I teach people, primarily like, hey, go out into your market and find the, people who are looking to retire and get out of it. And, a lot of them have built it kind of more like jobs versus like an asset. But how cool would it be for, a local business owner to take that and like take their legacy and, incorporate it into their business and take good care of their clients and their residents. So, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love building relationships. I'm a huge, proponent of that. I'm not like, even when I did cold calling, I never said, oh, hey, this is Stacey with Pure. We're buying businesses in your market. Do you want to sell? I mean, nobody's going to say yes. What do well, that's not how you do it. I was more about like, kind of researching the person and like finding out something that we might have in common or, talking about the local market and building that relationship. Because then the person feels like seen and heard and then they trust you. So There is definitely a fine art to it. I think that maybe people think that it's maybe an easy thing. Um, I don't think it's necessarily easy because you're convincing someone to, like, sell their biggest asset. Especially if you are doing cold
Their fourth child, right?
right? Yeah, their poor child, yeah. So, wow.
Ownership in that,
There is. And then on the flip side, like I love teaching people how to build their business like an asset because, for example, the business that I bought, I got a really good deal and, he hadn't built it up like it was a really strong business. There was a management fee, a lease up fee and a management fee. That was it. And he was the property manager and he had a bookkeeper. That was it. And so that's like a legit, just like I bought somebody's job. And I love to be able to teach people like, hey, build your business like it's not a job because then it's a bigger asset. And then, acquire some you can build up that way. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love being able now to teach people kind of the art of it. I do think there's an art to it. I think that especially women are really good at it because I do believe, women are really good with that, like listening and reading people and, really hearing what people are saying.
Right.
For me, of course, I'm very competitive. I'm very type A and I, want to crush my goals. But I never walked into a meeting thinking, okay, this is like 1,200 doors, so this is going to get me my bonus.
Right.
I walked in more, tell me about you. Like, tell me like about your business. Like, what are you proud of? Like, what works well, what doesn't? Um, and the other thing that I really worked hard on was like, I would ask questions and then I would like, shut up. I call it like, ask a question, sit back and shut up and really listen to like what people are saying. And I don't know, it worked pretty well.
So when you're saying you're like also teaching people how to like turn their business into an asset or build their business like an asset, right? Like that helps them when they're going to be on that side where they're looking to sell, right? Because when you and I know Mindy, you had mentioned this, like kind of learning a little bit more about acquisitions, right? Like when you take somebody else's like P&L and you're trying to analyze that and determine, um, that was such a huge piece of the process that I was excited to learn, right? Like what are they, how do they make money, right? And what is their, do you take into account the expenses? Do you not? What are they, how are they doing their main? So it's invaluable that somebody shares with you because from an acquisition side too, I've looked at people's P&L and been like, there's no way this is going to happen. Like they've got to take another year or two and for lack of a better word, like get their shit together.
Yep.
And then you can go back a year or two later and kind of reanalyze that business, right?
Yeah.
So that's a super important. Whatever you're charging to do that is, I'm sure, well worth it to that company in the long run.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. When I was doing acquisitions, I had a lot of like what I kind of called those counseling conversations of like, hey, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're not, we're not going to be able to move forward or however I said it. But if they were open to it, I would say, if you're open to the conversation, would you like me to provide you like 2 or 3 key points that you could work on in order to get your revenue up or get you to a different point? And 99% of the time they were open to it. And that's kind of where I had like the aha moment of, well, how can I take this and actually like move it into a business and like teach people? So mostly my programs right now are focused on teaching people how to go out and acquire. Of course, on the flip side, I could do the other piece of it, but there's really nobody out there teaching people how to do this. Like there's a lot of,
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other programs where they'll teach you how to like, hire a biz dev manager or, maybe do some marketing and like grow what I call the hamster wheel of growth. Uh, but there really isn't anybody that has that experience like that I do and that's able to say, hey, here is a framework. Literally, you can come into my advisory program. It's a 12-month program where I've got this framework and I'm going to literally like give you a playbook, if you do the activities, this is, you can go out and do this. And then, within that, I have like my A team, people like network. So if you need, an attorney, or if you need a CPA or whatever, like it's all like here for you. So there's no, like, you're not going to have to post on Facebook your rando question that like nobody's going to give you the right answer anyway. So don't totally use that. So it's I think a lot of fun, for me to be able to take those skills and really help people, and then help, within their community. Because at the end of the day, people are going to exit, and why not, carry over their legacy and, keep your community in good housing, and it's a win-win for all.
It is like honoring that legacy, though. I know I've said a million times, like when you know some of these property management companies that have been doing this for 20, 30 years, they literally started when it was just them and they're cleaning the toilets and they're, it's maybe them and their spouse or them and their kids, or they've got one partner. It's to say it's hard work is such doesn't even do it justice, right? So the fact that you use the term legacy, like honoring that legacy with giving them like a safe place to land, like something they can exit and be proud of, and then hopefully have some financial comfort in that to reward them from all those years of hard work. Like it's a really special process. Because it takes a special person to start and run a property management company for a long time and really put their heart and soul in it.
It does. It does, for sure.
Well, Stacey, we really do appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us a little bit of, personal story, how you got to where you're at, telling us about how you had grit, to get to where you're at today, and you had to find it when you weren't sure you had it. And here you are, you had tons of it. And I'm so glad that you shared that with us today. We're so happy you came on board today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I love your platform. I love that you're giving a voice to women in the single family space. I think that's so important. There's some amazing, badass women out there. So
you're welcome. And Stacey, tell our audience how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. Okay. So I have my own show. Actually, I just launched the Stacey Salyer Show. You can find it on any podcast platform. My website is staceysalyer.com. And I have, 3 main ways that you can work with me. I have an online community. It's only $97 a month. It's a great way to enter my world. And, if you want to dip your toe into like, what does it look like to maybe buy a company? I do some things in there. And then I do have my 12-month program that I'll be launching that basically gives you the framework on how to acquire. So that will be Slayer's Built to Acquire advisory program. So getting all the marketing and stuff out there. But I would love for people to, take a listen to my podcast. I'll have weekly episodes drop. Take a look at my website. If you, are curious about doing this or like building your business through acquiring, I've got a spot where you can book a call with me and we can talk through like what program would work best for you or where I think you should land in my world, and talk about your goals. And I would love to get to know more people.
I love it that what you're doing is empowering others. I love that.
Mm.
It's giving back.
Thank you.
It's it's giving back.
Yes, thank you.
100%. We thank you for being one of those badass women and, for being vulnerable with us and sharing, all the sides of you. It's such a beautiful thing. We really, really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Yeah, thank you again for having me. It was awesome. You guys rock.